Another day in which Kyrie is in some, I would call it dilemma. I wouldn't call it, it would be drama, but it would be another dilemma. And it seems like it's been a reoccurring theme the past couple years. So what I want to do is kind of go through the timeline of where it all began, what's led up to this point, all the different, dilemmas and drama that's happened up until this point, leading us to where we are now with Kyrie. Don't forget, if you're new, go ahead and subscribe for your boy. I would graciously appreciate it, as I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs by the end of the year. If you're not new, go ahead and leave your comments below on what you think about Kyrie Irving. Now, I just want to add a quick disclaimer before the video begins. I'm not going to give my thoughts on any of his personal views, the way he thinks personally, because we all know he thinks he's a free thinker, flat earther kind of guy. I'm not going to provide insight into any of that. I may add some opinion here and there, but with regards to personal stances, religious views, spiritual views, and things of that nature, I refuse to disrespect those things. So that is what we're not going to do in this video or in the comment section below. But without further ado, let's get into it. On July 12th, 2017, the LeBron and Kyrie led Cavs lost 4-1 to the Warriors in a finals that many knew the Cavs didn't stand a chance in, as the Warriors added KD a year prior and essentially built the most powerful team we've seen in years since the 2000 Lakers and the 96 Bulls. Just 12 days after this, despite being paired with LeBron and K-Love, Kyrie demanded a trade as he wanted to be the focal point of the franchise going forward while being his own man without feeling like he was in LeBron's shadow. He threatened that he would get knee surgery that he's been needing in an effort to get healthy, and this basically was the catalyst that allowed him to be traded immediately. We're gonna come back to that knee issue in a little bit. During this time, the Boston Celtics were in the midst of finalizing their own rebuild, and at the head of it all at this point was Isaiah Thomas. IT essentially sacrificed his career to play through a major hip injury in the 2018 playoffs, and also played through the tragedy of his sister passing in a car accident. At this point, IT was a fan favorite among Celtics fans and was even more beloved after her passing, and him having the game of his life. And yet the GM of the Celtics, Danny Ainge, went ahead and traded him that following summer anyway. Kyrie still had 2 years on his deal, but just months after facing off in the 2017 Eastern Conference Finals, Kyrie was traded to the Celtics for IT, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, and a first-round pick in 2018 that belonged to the Brooklyn Nets. IT was still recovering from his hip injury from the season prior. To be fair, it was the right move basketball-wise by Danny Ainge. IT's hip issues almost guaranteed the fact that he would not be the same player he was, and a guy that's already smaller with the 5'9" frame, it would be extremely difficult for him to play at an elite level. Regardless, for Ainge to move a player with that kind of stardom amongst Boston fans, you had to be sure you were getting a certified superstar, and that's exactly what he got when he got Kyrie. Now paired up with Gordon Hayward and a young Boston core that was ridiculously talented, all that was left was for Kyrie to live up to the title expectations that were set. These plans were significantly altered when Gordon Hayward broke his ankle opening night. It got even worse when Kyrie's knee issues reared its ugly head. Many thought Kyrie threatening to get knee surgery was just a ploy to get traded, but it turned out after he was traded and played just 60 games, he in fact did need knee surgery due to a fracture that he got in 2015. The reason this is important is because many blame Kyrie for not being in Cleveland the last year in 2018 to help them beat the Warriors, but if we're being realistic, Kyrie actually did have a bad knee, and because of his knee, he probably wouldn't have been able to help the Cavs. Another thing that people don't realize is because of his injury history, his trade value was not as high as many would have thought. As a result, Kyrie's season ended early in March, and despite him sitting out, the Celtics went on a Cinderella-like run, taking a 3-2 series lead over LeBron and the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Final. The Celtics dropped Game 6 and inevitably went back to Cleveland and lost in Game 7. Kyrie couldn't play, obviously, but showing up and sitting on the bench should have been the very minimum he did, and he couldn't even do that. And at this point, this is essentially the beginning of Kyrie's drama. Throughout the year, Kyrie had thrown slight jabs at guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, who said not only were they selfish, but they didn't know what it'd take to win. Let's keep in mind, during this time, Jason Tatum was a rookie and Jaylen Brown was just in the second year of his career. So they still needed some time to learn, because if we're gonna look at Kyrie and compare him to when he was his first and second year in the career, he was on a team that was going nowhere fast and was essentially given the green light because of it. At the time, his absence was brushed off because it's not like he could have really helped the team, but in hindsight, failing to even show up when your team is playing Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Conference Final, and your main guys that you're looking for scorer are 19 and 21-year-old is a red flag if I ever saw one. It's an even bigger red flag because early this year, he was saying how Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum didn't know how to win and that they were selfish players, but wouldn't this be one of the most selfish things a player could do? Even though you're injured and you're going through your training camp and your physical therapy and stuff, you can still be there with your team, especially because you have been there almost every other game. So what's stopping you from this one? But after all, this is just the first year, and the Celtics have many more years of Kyrie, right?
Nope.
Before the 2018 season, at a season ticket holder event at the TD Garden, Kyrie made a statement of the ages for the fans in Boston. Though NBA rules prevented the Celtics from extending Kyrie until after the season, Kyrie grabbed a mic anyway. He stated that he fully intended to be in Boston long term. Kyrie made a statement of the ages for fans in Boston, and the Boston fans ate it up. They thought they had a bright future ahead, especially going into the Eastern Conference Finals with two stars that are extremely young and Kyrie being their vet. Kyrie doubled down with the Nike commercials, stating how he wanted his number 11 to hang in the rafters of Boston forever. And at just 26 years old, Kyrie let it be known he wanted to be a foundational player for the Celtics' future. After making these promises, the season unfortunately didn't go as planned, and even got so bad to where Kyrie no longer wanted to be the veteran leader he left Bron to be. He even resorted to calling Bron for advice. Now at this point, Kyrie had Boston fans scratching their head and confused about what's going on, especially after he said what he said at the beginning of the year, and fast forward to this moment where when he's asked about whether he's going to stay or not, he had that response. This set the stage for a hallway interaction with KD at the All-Star game where Kyrie appeared to be selling KD on Brooklyn, which had 2 max slots to sign 2 max players. Though it wasn't very audible, and you can look at the footage yourself because I looked at it before writing this, Irving was asked about this, and he essentially gave the middle finger to the media and told them that what he does with his life is his business, and pretty much scolded the media, saying that this is what makes the league unfun and that putting fictitious things on what 2 best friends are talking about is ridiculous. Now, remember in the video I said I'll have my own opinion on certain things. This is one of them. You guys know how when a person is lying, they normally get defensive and deflect. Well, that's honestly exactly what Kyrie was doing, because later on, Kevin Durant confirmed that the meeting at the All-Star game was exactly what it looked like, but we're gonna revisit that shortly because that meeting doesn't come to fruition till a little bit later on. So we'll talk more about that little meeting later. One of Kyrie's biggest selling points on the Celtics acquiring him was his excellent playoff performance, most specifically in 2016. However, when it finally came to Kyrie to play for Boston in the playoffs, he was a bum. He was good in the first sweep of the Pacers, but when they saw a real squad in Milwaukee, he shot just 35% from the field, 22% from 3, and his averages were 20 points per, 6 assists, and 4.4 rebounds per game. Though that sounds pretty good, in game 2, he shot miserably from the field, shooting 4 for 18, and ended the series with an awful 6 for 21 shooting night, going 1 for 7 from 3. He was a minus 21 and minus 25 in both games respectively. After the Celtics were eliminated in 5, Kyrie was asked if he's ever had such an ugly shooting slump, and in prime Kyrie fashion, he answers with, yeah. Who cares? The rest of his answer was honestly a bunch of nothing, which is why I'm not playing it, but it essentially boiled down to him saying, who cares? I'm just gonna keep shooting. Unsurprisingly, after a disappointing year in Boston, Kyrie announced that he'd be going home to Brooklyn. Celtics fans weren't upset about his departure considering how messy his tenure there was. Rather, they were more upset at the lies and time wasted he had being there. At this point, this was the COVID year and the infamous time where Kyrie saged the TD Garden in order to cleanse the energy in the building. Now, again, as a black kid with spiritual parents, I'm with the saging, and of course, it was looked at by people pretty weirdly, but I'm not going to disrespect any cultures, ideologies, or any spiritualities when it comes to burning sage. I firmly believe myself that burning sage does help energy. But what's funny though is that Kyrie said he would do this in every game possible, but funny enough, him burning sage has never surfaced in any other arena. Kyrie finally played against the Celtics again in the postseason, and this is probably the one place I'm with Kyrie in the fact that he wanted fans to keep it strictly basketball when talking shit. As we all know, Utah and Boston are the two arenas that'll never occur. It doesn't stay strictly basketball. The racism is on full display in both of these arenas. Kyrie had a great game 4, scoring 39 points and 11 boards, but a fan did cross the line that night, throwing a bottle of water at him as he exited the floor. So Kyrie made it a point to go to the Celtics logo and wipe his feet on it. Now, this left a horrible taste in Celtics fans' mind because obviously not every Celtics fan is the guy that threw the water bottle. Not every Celtics fan is aware of the guy that threw the water bottle, but they are aware and see Kyrie going to the logo, stomping on it and wiping his shoes. So at that point, Boston fans despise Kyrie. Kyrie didn't play much ball the next year as he refused to get the vaccine, which essentially left James Harden and KD to do it all on their own. Harden realized that this isn't what he signed up for. He doesn't want a part-time guy, and he actually wants a coach that will really coach because Steve Nash was not that. So he asked for a trade and was traded to Philly almost immediately. This leads us to today. Kyrie is under fire for tweeting a link to a documentary that allegedly promotes anti-Semitic messages. I'll be honest, I did not watch the documentary, but after looking at the trailer, my interpretation is that it's essentially a research paper grounded on no solid evidence put into a movie. It's a bunch of stock photos and stock images with a guy talking over it, and he's pretty much talking about different ideologies that aren't essentially proven. He's essentially bringing up a lot of theoretical questions that don't have concrete answers or proof to them. It literally was a guy talking about race, religion, and phrenology. And if you don't know what phrenology is basically, if you watch the movie Django Unchained, when Leonardo DiCaprio brought out the skulls, and when he brought out the skulls and he said the two dimples in their head basically changes how the person thinks, they're black person, white person, whatever the case is. That's basically phrenology. Phrenology is essentially attributing certain things that are on certain people to either dismay or make their race either inferior or superior. Now, essentially, I think the film is just nuts. It's a lot of nonsensical talking. It's not really based on any real information. It seems like a lot of hypothetical, theoretical type of things that people are more or less wondering, but it's not really a documentary that promotes anything specific with regards to being hateful towards Jews or any other religion for that matter. Now, there was some ideas in there that spoke on the fact that Jews, Christians, and I forget the Muslims, that those three conspired against black people to keep us down or something like that. It was crazy. The whole documentary, I didn't watch it as a whole. Portion that I watched was nuts. Couldn't really follow it too well. So I'll be honest, him tweeting the link of that, it's not as big of a deal as it seems to me. The reason I say that is because it's more or less something that he put out there for you to say, hey, watch this, form your own opinion after you watch it. It's not a watch this is what you should believe type of thing, because the documentary didn't seem to be formed in that matter. It was more of we're gonna give you all this information, whether it's grounded information, it's referenced information or anything like that, but regardless, we're gonna let you think and take it for how you want to take it. Now, again, like I said, I don't have a true stance on the film because I haven't seen the film. Now, if Jewish people do say there is anti-Semitic messages, then I will say, okay, and I won't even promote the film. I mean, I don't promote the film, but you get what I'm saying. Now, regardless of him tweeting out the film, I do have a stance on his suspension and his suspension conditions. I understand suspending him 5 games, and that's okay, but the conditions to come back, it's that compared to buck breaking. Now, if you don't know what buck breaking is, it's essentially when a slave master would publicly beat, sexually assault, and do other things to a slave publicly as a means to set an example to other slaves. It would be the harshest form of punishment for something very small, just to set an example for others to quote unquote not get out of line. Now, Kyrie has already apologized and has been suspended, but the extra added onto his apology, it's a bit excessive. He's forced to donate $500K to the Anti-Defamation League, complete sensitivity training that is run by the Nets, complete anti-Semitic and anti-hate training, and meet with reps through the Anti-Defamation League as well as the Jewish community. And after completing all, he still has to meet with the owner of the Nets, Joe Tsai, and essentially talk to him. I say talk to him like a child because he's telling people, and he's even saying this publicly, Kyrie didn't apologize till he got suspended, and he needs to show that he's apologetic. It's kind of hard to show you're apologetic for something when the people that have this movie on their platform and making millions off of having this movie on this platform, they aren't getting the same backlash that Kyrie is getting. I'm not gonna dive into that too much because I don't want this to turn into any like political views or anything that's social issue related. I don't want that to get there. This is a basketball channel. Though Kyrie has been through it and has seemingly shown he doesn't really care what others think, I do still think his conditions are a bit excessive. At this point, it is almost inevitable that Kyrie will either be out of the league or onto another team. But the question remains, is it completely his fault that he's a cancer in locker rooms? Or is it how we view him? Is he the most misunderstood athlete that we've come to know in the NBA? In the area of social media, everything is under a microscope. And is it one of those things where we just see every little move that Kyrie does and we're able to nitpick it? Or is it one of those things where Kyrie genuinely puts himself in these situations by showing he's not emotionally intelligent and acting on a whim in certain situations where he doesn't need to? That's for you guys to decide. Comment below what you think. And if you're new, go ahead and drop a sub for your boy, like I said before. And until next time, it's your boy TB with the greatest hoop stories and debates on the tube. And I'm out.